Today, we're going to talk about an invention that completely rewired the way we connect with each other. We're diving into the story of the telephone and the brilliant, curious mind behind it, Alexander Graham Bell.
So let's just start with the main question, the one that seems almost impossible. How on earth do you take your voice, something that's literally just vibrations in the air, and send it through a solid piece of metal so someone miles away can hear you?
I mean, it sounds like pure magic, right?
Well, it wasn't magic. It was science, it was curiosity, and it was a whole lot of hard work. And to really get how it all happened, we need to go back in time and meet the person who figured it all out. A young man whose entire life, it seems, was preparing him for this one incredible breakthrough.
So where does an idea that big even come from? Let's start at the very beginning and look at the things that shaped Alexander Graham Bell into the inventor we know today.
Okay, so Bell was born in Scotland way back in 1847, and his world was basically all about sound. His dad and his grandfather were well-known experts on speech and how it all works. Bell himself was really into music and loved playing the piano. But he wasn't just an artsy kid. He was a problem solver. Get this, at just 12 years old, he built his very first invention. It was a simple machine to help a local farmer get the husks off of wheat grains. A small start, sure, but it showed he had a knack for practical engineering. Later on, his family moved to Canada in 1870, but Bell was drawn to the buzz of the United States and pretty soon moved down to Boston. And there, he found a job that was incredibly meaningful to him. He started teaching at a school for deaf students. This deep passion for communication, for helping people connect, would end up being the real driving force behind his greatest work.
Right, so once he's in Boston, Bell's incredible mind zooms in on a huge technological challenge of the day. He got totally obsessed with a problem that was all about speed, sound, and the technology that was changing the world.
So back then, the most high-tech way to communicate over long distances was the telegraph. How it worked was you'd send little pulses of electricity through a wire. Those pulses would be translated into Morse code, the series of dots and dashes, to spell out a message. It was an amazing invention, but it had a really big flaw. And here was the problem. A single telegraph line could only handle one message at a time. That created this massive traffic jam for information, making communication super slow and inefficient. Bell was convinced there had to be a better way.
His big idea was something he called the harmonic telegraph. Since he knew so much about music, he thought, what if we could send lots of messages on the same wire at the same time just by putting each message on a different musical note or frequency? It was a really ambitious project, but it was this experiment that accidentally put him on the path to something even bigger.
Now, Bell was a brilliant thinker, for sure, but turning these huge ideas into actual working machines, that took a totally different set of skills. He couldn't do it all by himself. He needed a partner. And that partner was a young, super skilled electrician named Thomas Watson. They were the perfect team. Bell was the visionary, the guy with the scientific theories and the big ideas. And Watson? He was the hands-on expert, the one who could actually build the stuff and make it work. So while they were working on that telegraph idea, Bell had this even crazier thought. He wondered, what if, instead of just sending dots and dashes, he could actually send the sound of a human voice? The concept was basically this: convert the vibrations from speech into a continuous flowing electrical current, then send that current down a wire and have a receiver on the other end turn it back into sound vibrations. Simple, right? Bell and Watson worked like crazy, and then it happened. In their lab in Boston, Bell spoke into his new contraption. In another room, Watson was listening at the receiver when all of a sudden he heard clear words coming through the machine. The now famous sentence was pretty simple. "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see." The date was March 10, 1876. On that day, human communication was changed forever. For the very first time in all of human history, a person's voice had traveled through a wire, instantly and clearly. Okay, so inventing the telephone was one thing, but turning that invention into a piece of technology that could actually connect the entire world, well, that was the next massive challenge. So, to protect his incredible invention, Bell needed something called a patent. A patent is basically an official document from the government that says you invented this, so you're the only one who has the right to make and sell it for a while. It's how you stop other people from stealing your idea. And this is where the story gets really dramatic. Bell filed his application for the patent just hours before a rival inventor named Elisha Gray filed one for a very similar device. This crazy race to the patent office led to years of intense court battles. But in the end, the court sided with Bell, confirming he was the true inventor.
And from there, the idea just exploded. Look at how fast this all happened. The very same year he made that first call, Bell did a public demonstration that just blew everyone away. By 1877, he'd already founded the Bell Telephone Company. And just 10 years after that first call, there were over 150,000 phones in use across the US. The revolution was officially on.
But here's the thing. If you only think of Alexander Graham Bell as the telephone guy, you're really missing out on the true scope of his incredible curiosity and genius.
I mean, his mind just never stopped working. He invented something called the photophone, which sent sound on a beam of light. That's basically a super early version of modern fiber optics. He developed an early metal detector to try and find a bullet in an injured US president. He was fascinated with flying and did all sorts of experiments with giant kites. Oh, and he also helped start the National Geographic Society. The man was a true lifelong innovator.
And let's be real, his first invention wasn't perfect either. Those early telephones had terrible sound quality and really weak signals. It took years and years of constant improvements by countless other engineers, better wiring, stronger batteries, new kinds of insulation, to turn the telephone into the reliable global system we know.
So why does all this matter so much today? Because the fundamental idea, turning a signal into electricity and back again, is the foundation for pretty much all of our modern communication. The internet, our smartphones, it all traces back to Bell's original idea of teaching a wire how to talk.
And if you really want to grasp the scale of his impact, just think about this. When Bell died in 1922, every single telephone in North America went silent for 1 full minute to honor him. That's how deeply his invention was woven into the fabric of daily life in just a few decades.
Bell's story began with a simple fascination with sound and a deep desire to solve a problem. It just goes to show you how one person's curiosity can literally change the entire world. So I guess the question to leave you with is this: what are you curious about? And what problem will that curiosity help you solve?